Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Automic SaaS Transition Showdown. I'm Tammy Pack, your host for today's Battle of the Titans. Before we kick off this epic battle, a quick note on housekeeping. This isn't your typical public webinar. We know you're here to cheer on your favorite Titan, but to keep the cheering to a minimum, we will be muting the lines. We've received many questions in advance, and you can also submit new ones in the Q&A section as they come to mind. This showdown's being recorded and will be emailed to you in your event package after the event. More on that package later. Now, let's introduce today's contenders. In one corner, we have Kaj Wierda, the product line manager for Automic Automation at Broadcom. Weighing in with 25 years of experience, Kaj comes from a family of fighters. His wife boxes, and he got ready for this battle at a corn concert. Kai's motto is, I beat the Bob father at darts, and now I will beat him at boxing. Welcome, Kaj. And in the other corner, standing tall with 27 years of automation experience, Bob Schwartz, CEO and president of Robert Mark Technologies. RMT is Broadcom's Geo Partner of the Year, the partner of partners, and has been selected as Broadcom's Automation Partner of the Year for every year since we started working together. Bob, step into the ring. What do you have to say to your opponent? And Bob, you are on mute.
Well, I wanted to start by saying thank you, Cami. Kaj, I salute you. Hopefully we have a good battle today. I also wanted to start off by saying thank you to everyone who is here watching this event live, and also to those who will be watching the recorded version. I really appreciate it. You're here because you want to know more about Automic SaaS. You want to know a little bit about the evolution of SaaS, workload automation, SaaS, all of those things. So hopefully we will answer all of those questions for you. So I'm going to start out by hitting on the topic of why SaaS for workload automation. Maybe some of you have done research before you came here today. Maybe you're here because you want some information based on that. So I'm going to talk about one of the key areas for SaaS to start, and that's modernization. So Kaj, we're here to talk about moving workload automation to SaaS. You guys have been through a lot to get yourselves in this position, but I'm going to warm up with a couple jabs on why SaaS matters and see if you can beat this. So I talked about modernization, and I know that's a buzzword that's been used a lot, but I think it's extremely imperative to actually moving to SaaS version, because organizations are really trying to do more and more to get out of the business of supporting and managing infrastructure. I don't know that you have to ask why that way, but if you do, it's because organizations really want to focus on their core business. It's making apps and enhancements, and with actually anybody obviously that's been through the whole COVID process itself and the pandemic, we learned from our organization how imperative it was for clients to really evolve. And then the evolution of that was really for them to understand that IT isn't really a cost center anymore. It's actually a way that you can use to make applications and really enhance your sites and ways to generate revenue. And so IT organizations really are about that. So what we want to really be able to do as an organization is focus less on the supporting of infrastructure and so forth, and give the effort back over to the application team so that they can do what I just talked about, which is drive revenue and growth based on user experience and applications and so forth. So modernizing is not just a buzzword, it's a key to staying ahead. By upgrading to a modern workload automation solution like Automic SaaS, you're not just moving to the cloud, you're future-proofing your entire operation. So it's about having a system that's ready for anything. Integrations, no matter where, whether it be in the cloud or on-prem or hybrid or whatever it be, it becomes really crucial. So as more and more organizations focus their efforts on looking at vendors, you have to ask the question, do you have a SaaS solution? Does your SaaS solution have good integration? Does it integrate with other SaaS solutions? So that's where we start with this whole conversation, and battle is about modernization. So Kaj, I'm going to throw it back over to you. What do you say about that?
Well, Bob, you did make a little contact with that one, and I'll humor you on this because I think there's more to it. So you say modernization is nice to have. Well, scalability isn't just a nice to have, it's a game changer, right? And sticking with self-hosted applications is like, I don't know, trying to run a marathon on flip-flops. Sure, you can get there ultimately, but it's going to be a struggle, right? These systems will limit your ability to grow and demand constant maintenance. So moving to cloud-based solutions, on the other hand, frees you up, offering the flexibility to scale as your needs evolve. Plus, with things like disaster recovery baked in, you're just not keeping up with tech advancements, you're ready to roll with them. In short, scalability means you can focus on growth without being held back by outdated systems. And I bet you can't think of anything else that bothers people more, Bob.
Well, I can think of something that actually adds to that, and that would be how good is Automic SaaS from a scalability perspective if they go with on-prem versus Automic SaaS? Is there any difference in the scalability?
Great question, but actually, Bob, the answer is no. So you can run the same amount of volume through Automic SaaS as you can in the on-prem version of Automic. However, when running on-prem, the customer is responsible for ensuring the infrastructure is available to handle, the always growing workloads, but also consider things such as high availability. Whereas with Automic SaaS, guess what? Broadcom takes care of all that for you.
Well, so I'm going to add a little more to that then. I think in the past, big organizations would get a wee bit nervous about moving to SaaS. So if I'm a really big organization, I run a lot of jobs through there, there's no difference for me at all, whether I'm on-prem or SaaS?
No difference really, no. It's the same feature set, Bob. Whether you talk about Automic on-prem or SaaS, it's exactly the same version. And the good thing is, because it's the same, it also means that migrating from on-prem to SaaS, we don't even call it a migration, we call it a transition. Like for like feature set, it also means that moving the existing workload automation configuration around is as simple as doing an upgrade.
Excellent. Well, we are going to get to that topic, so you're throwing punches in between rounds, but that's okay. All right. So I'm going to talk now a little bit about maintaining supportive software versions, because that is one of the main reasons why folks move to SaaS, right? Is they don't want to have to deal with that. So in terms of maintaining supported versions, have you ever considered it's harder to keep on-prem solutions up to date? Meaning, there's a lot of shops we talk up to that have full-time folks that their sole purpose is keep the lights on, keep the software maintained, updated, integrations available, all those kind of things. Agents, right? That's always another huge issue, is making sure agents are up to date. So their sole purpose is doing that. If they aren't so good at it, or they don't have the knowledge, or they don't take advantage of new feature functionality, or they leave the product somewhat unsupported, agents that aren't updated, and a lot of times it's not their fault. The application teams won't let them do it, right? But that's like leaving the front door open. And really, in a lot of those situations, and we deal with a lot of clients, we work with a lot. And we do. I just saw an email the other day. The client said, we have agents that are way outdated. And we made a recommendation to them. We said, you have to get those updated. And so they're just asking for trouble in those situations, because security, compatibility, knowledge, all those risks pile up. And it makes the systems vulnerable and operations really shaky. And so one cool thing to think about it in terms of Automic SaaS, with all the regular updates, the supportability, they're like your security guards or your bouncers. They're standing at the front door, and they're making sure that everything's locked down, running smoothly. And at the end of the day, that's what it's about, right? Like, that's why you move to SaaS, is you don't want to have to deal with that, but you want to have the confidence that the organization that's going to do it for you is going to do an effective job. So staying updated doesn't just protect a company, right? It's like powering up for the future for them. And what I mean by powering up is powering up your applications so that you're eliminating a lot of the work that's mundane and difficult, but still needs to be done and needs to be done effectively. And so anyway, that's the whole idea around Automic SaaS. So Kaj, bet you can't one up that one.
Well, Bob, what about this? As your IT systems grow more complex, the demand for skilled professionals rises, right? And to combat talent scarcity and keep your systems well managed and responsive to technology shifts, you can invest either in employee training or consider partnering with the experts. Dodge that, Bob.
Well, I don't think I need to dodge that one. I'm gonna let it hit home a bit because I do think that's an issue we're hearing a lot of. Actually having resources that can help support things. So we worked with an organization just a couple of weeks ago, and they said they're moving off the mainframe. And I asked them, I said, well, you're kind of outgrowing the technology on the mainframe. And they said, no, not at all. We like the mainframe. We want to stay in the mainframe. We want to keep the mainframe. We just can't find anybody to support it. So their sole purpose and their sole reason I'm moving off the mainframe wasn't even technology at all. It was old that they couldn't get the resources anymore to support it. So I agree with you wholeheartedly on that one. But I'm going to move now to another topic, resolving scheduling conflict. So it's somewhat painful, and I think most of the folks on this call will agree with me. When you want to do any kind of maintenance, when you want to do anything, in a lot of cases, other applications, it's easier to do it, right? Like if I want to upgrade operating systems for most part, right? The user experience and so forth. I can do it on the weekend when nobody's in the office and so forth. When you have these solutions and you want to upgrade them or you want to do any kind of maintenance, it is extremely daunting because the application teams are putting stuff in the system that run around the clock. So find a way to do that, right? In a lot of cases, what I've come to learn is the application teams don't want you to touch it. They just want you to leave it alone. And so even though they may benefit them, they're still going to kind of kick, fight, and cry to keep you from doing it. The great part about the answer to that is by moving to a SaaS solution, that gets handled for you. Yes, you still need to do it in a window, but the good part about it is it's sort of like, well, the application teams can say what they want, but it's going to get done. And so they have to adjust accordingly, right? So the great part about that is it keeps your systems up to date, all the feature functionality up to date and at your disposal by leveraging a SaaS solution like Automic. So with that, that kind of ends our round one, which is why SaaS. I'm not going to let Kaj get a word in because I want to win the round, and therefore I'm going to cut it loose on why SaaS discussion. And so at that point, round one is over, and I think now Cammy's ready for a couple things.
I'm going to interrupt this fight for some spectator questions. They came in from all of you when you were registering for this webinar. And we'll start by asking Bob, what cloud integrations are available with Automic SaaS?
That's a fantastic question. And so what we tried to do in this is for everybody on the call and watching the recorded version, we want to add some of the questions in to kind of keep the fight moving and so forth. So we appreciate your questions. Anyone on this call, please ask questions in the chat window so that we can continue to make sure that you get what you come here for. As it relates to integration, so it's very easy question. There is a tremendous amount of integrations. There's over 300, and I pulled this screen up and I'm going to share it with you so that you can see. Oop, wrong screen. And really the idea around it is there is at the current search 466. So they are constantly putting out integration after integration after integration. And so the really cool part about it is you come here, you look for the integration that you want. So this is a really popular one. You can see here the Airflow. A lot of folks are leveraging Automic to integrate with Airflow. And so all you do is you pick it, you download it, you use it, you implement it, and off you go. The other cool part about this is the licensing corresponds to that, meaning you don't have to pay additional cost for that actual plugin. You just download it and off you go. And again, this marketplace is available for everybody. Kaj, I may ask you to step in on this one because there are other folks that are putting out, like if a client or somebody else creates a plugin, they can promote it here on the marketplace, right? I believe that's the case. It's not just Broadcom putting out here, right?
Yeah, we do distinguish between Broadcom developed and supported integrations, but we also cater to so-called community submitted integrations. Think of them as open source, and also partners can submit content to be hosted on the automation marketplace. Definitely, yeah.
So that's fantastic. So it's, you know, a blend of different folks. If I'm a client and I actually create something, I can get it out there so that other people can use it. If I'm like an RMT, like us being out there in the trenches, and we can create things as well and promote them out here for you all to use. So the answer, which is easy, is a lot, and it continues to grow.
Okay, great. So we've got a new question. Kai, this customer is asking for more details about Automic SaaS from PCI 4.0 perspectives.
Okay, so in this case, I think PCI or PCI DSS stands for Payment Card Industry Data Security Standard. So PCI DSS. So this is a global data security standard for any entity that process, store, or transmit cardholder data or any other type of sensitive authentication data. And this standard consists of steps that mirror security best practices. So although Automic SaaS is not a dedicated solution for handling payment card transactions, it does manage, of course, any kind of production workloads, right? We execute scripts, we execute commands, we orchestrate systems through API calls and point to applications and services that may, in fact, process payment and or personal data. So from this point of view, the question is a very valid one. Already said we're not a dedicated solution for handling payment card transactions, and therefore also Automic SaaS is not officially certified for PCI DSS. However, we are fully compliant to that standard, and I'll tell you why. Automic SaaS is currently SOC 2 Type 1 certified, and SOC 2 is all around security controls. And we are on track to reach SOC 2 Type 2 later this year. Remember, we launched in May of this year. Now, SOC 2 security controls are actually a superset of the PCI DSS requirements, and quite similar in nature actually. So whether it's about maintaining a secure network and systems, or protecting data in transit or at rest using industry standard encryption, or maintaining a vulnerability management program, right? SOC 2 Type 2 ensures we are compliant with PCI DSS. And I hope with that I answered that question.
Wonderful. Now, Bob, let's bring you back on the screen and ask you, what are some cost-saving tips when migrating Automic Automation solutions to the cloud?
Well, that's a many-pronged answer. I'll start with clients that already have Automic and they're on-prem and they want to move to the cloud. I know Kai talked about this a little bit ago. It's quite easy. In fact, I think a good way to think about it is almost like an upgrade to Automic. And so you can use transport cases to actually get you there. It's essentially an upgrade, as I mentioned. And so very quick, very easy. You can do it in pieces. You can do it as a whole. I mean, there's a lot of different ways to do that. So I think the biggest part about all of this is to have a good plan of attack. You need to make sure that you understand what you're moving. The other thing that applies to the Automic versus anybody else is to make sure that you remove the garbage from the legacy environment. So that's another way to reduce the amount of, obviously saving on migrating to Automic SaaS. So I think the other part I was going to mention is when you're looking at removing garbage out of the environment. So if I'm moving from Automic on-prem to Automic SaaS, or I'm moving from another product over to Automic SaaS, it's really important to not bring over garbage. We've talked about that. I've said that ad nauseum I've been doing this 27 years, and I think I've said it for every single year many, many times. Where we've evolved as an organization is how we coach folks that want to make that move. And one of the ways that we do that is we don't say, go clean up. Like, who wants to go clean up, garbage out of something you're leaving behind, meaning the tool you're leaving behind. So what we do instead is we say, go through, do some due diligence and determine which one of the jobs would be quote unquote garbage, and let's just not convert them. Like, let's not bring them over. So even in Automic on-prem versus Automic SaaS, leave it, don't bring it over, don't clean it up. Just leave it and know which ones to bring over that aren't garbage, and bring those over and leave the ones that are garbage behind. So I'd say that's extremely important as it relates to this, because obviously you're not converting and moving stuff over, which is going to save you time, effort, cost, all of that. And then, I think those are really the best ways. And if you really, really want to save money and you really want to get a good migration, you really want a good transition, RMT does it all the time. We've done, and I think there's another question out there that is related to this, and I'll hit that as well. But we've done 130 plus conversions. We know how to do it, and we know how to do it effectively, mitigating risk and lowering costs. So that would be my last answer. Of course, I have to plug in some form or fashion.
Okay, thank you, Bob. Kaj, we have a combo platter one for you here.
Ooh, nice.
First, can you speak to P2 security and regulations adherence? And second, what's the SaaS support model? How do you escalate a priority 1 incident?
All right, 2 questions. And the first one, I think, is PII, as in personal identifiable information. No worries.
Yeah.
Every time I'm having conversations about SaaS, I have many, right? The topics of, data privacy, adherence to certain, programs that warrant a certain confidence level of security, etc. These topics come up all the time. So these are all valid questions. I'll talk to the first one, PII, personal identifiable information. So this question is really all about data privacy, right? And how Automic SaaS processes such information. So good for everyone to know that all Broadcom enterprise software and also services, Automic SaaS being one of them, have to be aligned to Broadcom's data privacy policy. This means we also publicly disclose the details for the entire software portfolio and SaaS offerings as to how, for each of these offerings, data is handled. This also includes the involvement of, say, any third party that may process data on Broadcom's behalf. That, of course, is fully optional and is totally dependent on the product and service offering. But if you want to read more, all this information is publicly available. So the Broadcom Global Data Privacy Policy, there's a link, I think, that will be shared in the chat and also as the follow-up, but it can be found on the Broadcom main website. Look under company, legal, and then under privacy, and you'll find the policy easily. So Broadcom.com, company, legal, privacy, and then you'll find the policy. For individuals, so that's the overall policy, right? How Broadcom handles this. But then for each individual enterprise software and services, there's also so-called transparency notices. They can be found, again, on Broadcom.com, company, then you go to legal, privacy, and then you click on transparency, and then you can look up Automic SaaS there and you'll find this information. And again, these links will be shared with you in this event and as part of the follow-up email. The second question was more around support, right? What's the support model? And I think the question was, how do you escalate a priority 1 incident? Now, I can be brief about Broadcom being a global organization. We provide 24/7 follow the sun support. So anywhere you are on the planet, in any time zone, you can open a ticket, right? So the first point of contact for Automic SaaS or any Broadcom product or service is Broadcom support. And it's actually support that determines if the issue is a software issue, or in case of SaaS, an infrastructure issue, right? Now, there is routing that will happen, right? Software will be dealt with by the Automic engineering team, the same team that supports our on-premises customers. And if it's infrastructure, it will go to our dedicated Broadcom SaaS operations team, right? But keep in mind that we don't want you to tell us that the infrastructure isn't working, right, or the service is slow. Keep in mind that we continuously monitor our SaaS infrastructure, so we know the state of the service, and it's very likely that we will be aware of infrastructure issues should they arise before you do, right? Other details about Broadcom support policy, including things like support to response time objectives, etc. They also can be found on the Broadcom support portal at support.broadcom.com, support.broadcom.com, and there you will find all information related to our support policy. All right, I guess that answers the combo platter, and back to you.
Fabulous. Okay, so now let's bring up another question and bring Bob back on the screen. Bob, this customer wants to know, what is the migration path from Autosys to Automic?
Good question. Kind of hit on a little bit of it earlier. So there are a lot of factors when planning, estimating a conversion. It's effectively a transition, like I mentioned, what we want to be able to do. So as I mentioned, we've done 130 of these. I'll show something on the screen that makes sense, but conversion from on-prem Autosys to obviously Automic SaaS is just like any other conversion we would do. We would follow the same methodology that we would with any conversion. And I'll show you a little bit, but I could easily take up this entire rest of the time talking about this. So I'll stay extremely high level, and I'll talk about a couple different things. One, homework is so imperative and important when doing any kind of a conversion. So you want to make sure that you do all your due diligence. We call it a conversion analysis. That allows us to understand everything inside and out on how you use the tools, and then be able to appropriately understand what that's going to look like in Automic SaaS. So we do our homework, and then we go to the point where we actually do the export and conversion itself. And we take that and we convert it through. And usually there's a certain number of conversion rate. So we shoot for 80% or above, which means there's 20% to 20% or less that have to be massaged and manipulated to make them work. And then at that point, they would move to the next stage, which is the testing that we do. Again, I am as high level as you can possibly be in this process, but it is extremely tried and true with over 130 conversions that have been successful. And I will share with you a teaser shot here that shows a little bit of the screen. So again, I could spend the whole time talking through this. If you get serious about moving from any tool set to Automic SaaS and you want to chat with us, we can walk through this in much more detail for you all. And then you'll understand we know what we're doing. Then you'll understand we mitigate risk and we know how to get you there. But until then, I'll stay high level. So you can see here, we have our conversion analysis, the export phase, the scrub phase, which is after the conversion. Then we go into the testing phase, and then we go into the deployment phase. And that deployment phase is obviously moving things into production. And so that is the migration path for any tool to Automic SaaS, but obviously Autosys. Great part is we know all the tools that are out there. So no matter what tool you have, we know how to get you from there to Automic SaaS. So that is the answer to my question.
Awesome. Let's bring the contenders back up together and have you duke out the dangers of SaaS, because we know there's other tools out there that offer SaaS. What do you guys have to say about that?
So I'll start. I'm going to go back 10 years ago when I was sitting at, I'm sure people on this call remember CA World, and I remember sitting across from a JPMC executive, and we were talking about a SaaS, right? Like SaaS, because it was kind of, it was just coming out and everyone was starting to talk about it. It was a really big buzz. And he said, no financial organization will ever go with a SaaS tool, ever. He said, no matter what, no matter how secure it is, no matter what. The interesting thing about that is it's not the same guy anymore. He's moved on. But that organization themselves are entertaining the idea of moving SaaS, meaning how far we've come in terms of organizations saying we trust SaaS. Like, actually, we're moving to SaaS. Even the financial markets themselves and the financial organizations, because obviously they have the most scrutiny. So having said that, I wanted to point that out because it is safe, right? Like, all organizations are really entertaining the idea of it. They're moving to, we talk to companies all the time that say, every single software we use, we're telling them if they don't have SaaS, we're moving to the different tool that does. And so anyway, I'm glad Workload Automation is also in the mix for that. Obviously, Broadcom and Automic SaaS. So Kai, as a representative of Broadcom, you're the vendor. Our company is really kind of product neutral in terms of, software and services. We know all the products in the space. And the great part about that is we're here today to talk Automic SaaS. So we believe in it. We think it's a great tool and so forth. One of the things I think the folks on this call maybe don't know about you all is that Broadcom itself puts $5 billion back in terms of research and development. So I'll pause there and say, is that true, Kai? I believe that's true. Excellent. All right. So the cool part about that is, I can't tell you $5 billion is being put into Automic SaaS, but I'm sure Automic SaaS is getting some of that, right? So that's really cool for everybody on this call and watching after after the recorded version, to know that Broadcom is investing back, right? And so that's really important because, as I said, we know a lot of the tools in the space, and vendors claim a lot, and whether they do it or not is a big question mark. And so they may say they do what they claim, but how they're growing the solution, how well is their SaaS solution versus their on-prem solution? These are all questions for everybody on this call to really take note on, because if you're evaluating Automic or SaaS solutions and Automic SaaS, you have to ask these questions. Does it integrate? Because if you think about what I just said, where organizations are saying, we're looking at every single solution we have and seeing if we can make it SaaS. And if they can't, we're moving to one that does. And the idea around that is, if you're talking integration, it's not just application integration on-prem, and it's not even just application integration in the cloud. Can it integrate with SaaS solutions, right? And so that's another big part. Having a cloud app is different than having a SaaS tool itself. So how does it integrate with that? What about acquisitions? Are they ping-ponging, right? Meaning the solution or the software itself gets bought and sold, right? That's another one you have to ask about, and you got to do your due diligence and homework. And then also, they need to be, everybody on here needs to be aware of that, because you want to pick a solution that's investing, that's there, that's supporting, putting in new feature functionality, all the things you've always looked at when you looked at software. But if you don't do that, you're going to be picking a shaky vendor, and folks are going to get screwed when they move to a SaaS solution. They'll feel like they're drowning in a tidal wave of ineptitude. So I'll turn it over to you, Kai.
Tidal wave. Ouch. Those really are fighting words, Bob. Thankfully, not at us. So I do want to speak to this acquisition ping pong you brought up, right? And we've been around the block, right? It's been close to 40 years. That's amazing, right? And Automic has had only 3 owners, and we retained the entire product team when Broadcom bought CA Technologies back in 2018 and made Automic its flagship product. So using Broadcom's deep pockets, as you've mentioned, right, we've continued to increase investment in the workload automation product we are. So users can continue to rely on us, can continue to rely on Automic to show up for their business critical apps and keep showing up with new feature functionality year over year. So I want to highlight some examples, right, around cloud readiness. And this is before we had SaaS, right? The ability to deploy Automic as a cloud native application on a customer preferred cloud to enable them to run Automic where and when they like. Another example that you already highlighted, right? Our increasing library of vendor agnostic integrations to help ensure we can automate within, but also orchestrate across the hybrid and multi-cloud landscape. And of course, our latest innovation, Automic SaaS.
Okay, I respect that, Kai. And speaking as someone who's worked with all the major products in the space over the last 2 decades, I can tell you that each cloud vendor offers automation capabilities. However, a lot present significant limitations. And I want to talk a little more about islands of automation. And again, a little bit of a buzzword, but those limitations that I just spoke of come down to the basic tool sets. They lack visibility, they lack cross-platform dependencies, and their integration abilities. And as I mentioned, if a client gets a SaaS solution, they are adding an island of automation. And so it's extremely important because what it means in terms of we're looking at fragmentation and a real disconnected picture of your cloud environment. What do I mean by that? If I move to SaaS, Automic SaaS, and I keep an on-prem version, and then, oh, by the way, I have Airflow, and oh, by the way, I have other solutions. These are the islands of automation that I'm talking about. And I know there's certain statistics around that I think you'll probably get into in a second. But the idea around that is when these islands of automation are out there, that adds an extra layer of complexity, support, cost, overhead, all of those things that really make it difficult. So the idea around it is, that's why I said earlier, you want to pick a solution that's going to be there that can handle everything you need it to do, right? Because when we went through a lot of the digital transformation with organizations, a lot of them forgot about workload automation and thought of it midstream and came to us and said, oh man, we forgot about workload automation. And we're finding that this solution that we have is legacy. It's not integrating with any of the applications that we're moving to or we want it to integrate with. So oops, we have to consider that now. And so that is something that you have to think about. And we really want to do, we want to move to a solution that allows us to do everything that we can to reduce those islands themselves. And really, as Automic solves that problem. And as you spread across platforms, hybrid, on-prem, self-hosted, Automic can rapidly visualize, orchestrate automation across your enterprise and your cloud service providers. So let's reduce the islands, right? That's what this is all about. Anything to add on that, Kai?
All I can say is, boom, you raise a great point there, Ron. But I'd like to raise the stakes on the point you brought up, right? Because you just said it. We're also talking about it. But of course, there are actually analyst firms that do market research, talk to enterprise customers, and conduct surveys. And from a survey that was conducted by analyst firm EMA, we found out that 81% of companies that use multiple automation solutions, right, that most of them experience at least one scheduler cost SLA breach every year, right? And this is a reason why 85% of these customers, right, either plan to or already have consolidated automation tools. And they often combine that with a shift to cloud. So that's a really interesting observation that came out of the survey. What do you say, Bob?
Yeah, I actually remember that, Kai. Wasn't that at the Automation Summit? I think that EMA presentation was during the last year's summit. And oh, by the way, I will plug you all on this as well, because you have another summit coming up. And if it's anything like the last one, I really enjoyed that presentation. What's really kind of cool for everybody on this call to really think about as you mentioned, 81% have more than one tool. And I just talked about islands of automation. I talked about the desire and need. And what we tell everybody is reduce those islands, right? And they all say, we want to. And so if 85% of them in this presentation that EMA did have more tools and they don't want more tools, then that means the majority of the folks on this call are in the same boat. And I think that's significant in the way of talking about moving to a platform of the future that allows you to consolidate, right? And whether you do it by converting or manager of managers, right? Either way, that's gotta be the actual intention of organizations, is to try to get themselves to a position to where they're not allowing these point solutions, these islands of automation that are out there. So I think it was a great point. I'm going to use that to kind of segue into a case study or a use case that we had, because a lot of folks that are on this call, we got questions about, oh, you know, I have Autosys, how do I move to Automic SaaS? Other folks may have different tools. I'm going to use this as an example, and I thought it was a great playbook from them. They came to us and they said, we really want Automic in the cloud. We're going to move that way. We're going to go with it. We're moving to SaaS, all of those things. They said, it's not there today, meaning we're rewriting applications that are on-prem. We have a legacy tool. What we're thinking of doing this, and what they said they were going to do, and they're doing it, is they actually deployed the Automic SaaS in the cloud, and they're saying all new applications, all new stuff goes in there. Anything they're rewriting that's on-prem, that's considered legacy, they're going to let it kind of die a slow death, meaning it stays there, it gets rewritten in the new solution, and then when that gets rewritten, that app goes out of the legacy solution. We blessed that. We thought that was actually a really good idea, because if they didn't do that, they would convert over the garbage I just talked to, and it's not quite garbage yet, but it will be soon. So why do that? And eventually that legacy tool will go away and they'll have everything in the cloud. It's perfect. And so I wanted to share that with everybody on this call, because that's also a good solution, right? It's an easy way to kind of do it without the major costs of trying to do it right away. And it's kind of a slow death way, but that still works. And so I wanted to point that out, and I think it was a great approach. But I'll turn it over to you, Kaj, to talk about management itself and so forth related to the solution.
Definitely. And that's a good point you raised, because management does matter, right? Even when you're on SaaS, right? Because the benefits, and there's a lot, remember, there's sustained innovation, enhanced customer experience, improved agility, right? Those benefits are not guaranteed. What I mean to say is, to maximize the potential of SaaS also depends on how you manage the hybrid or multi-cloud workloads. And part of that means controlling how you use cloud resources, so you can actually reduce expenses and optimize the cloud footprint.
Great, thank you. So Kaj, a spectator asked, and the people want to know, can you provide an update of customers that are going live with Automic SaaS?
It's time for questions again. I love how we switch back and forth. Great question. Let's start by saying that we launched Automic SaaS in May of this year. So we haven't been live for that long, but we do have a number of customers already in different verticals across the globe, so both in the US as well as in Europe, that are already in various stages of onboarding with Automic SaaS. And every week, every month, more and more customers are transitioning to SaaS, or are definitely showing interest in wanting to talk to us. So some have already signed contracts and are actively working with their, for example, security and infrastructure teams to point their agents from their existing on-premises Automic to Automic SaaS, while others have already moved their first workloads to Automic SaaS. So it varies, right? But one piece of information to add is that we do see a lot of interest, and I know RMT is also seeing that same interest, right? I have at least at least 2 customer conversations on a topic of Automic SaaS every week. So we're really seeing a lot of interest there. Bob, can you add something to this as well?
Yeah, I was just going to add just a little bit saying we too have a few customers that are going live, and we're expecting to do that in the next couple months. So yes, there's a lot of movement, a lot of action, and a lot of excitement around it. So, all right,
Awesome.
back to you, Cami.
Well, I've got another one for you, Kai. What are your thoughts regarding, and this is from a customer, the use of automation tools for their future use in the fast-paced race of AI incorporated in every domains?
I was expecting this question. Bob, you talked about buzzwords before, but definitely AI, and I think generative AI in particular is, a hot topic. It's the hot topic, right? Everyone is talking about it. Everyone needs to have, a strategy or at least an opinion around it, right? So great topic. And I do think that I can speak of 2, let's say, use cases or scenarios, if you will. One that is very current, and I see several of our customers already leveraging their enterprise automation platform in context of an AI initiative, and the other one is something that we're starting to see and have a lot of ideation around. Let's start with the first. Let's say a real world use case, right? So any machine learning, right? AI still is a form, an advanced form of machine learning, right? Any of those use cases rely on vast amounts of data. It's all about the data, right? And it's about this data where existing customers for years already have been using their workload automation solution for, right? Back in the days, some still call it ETL, right? Extract, transform, load. So consolidating data from different sources into a single database or data lake, right? And this use case has literally been around for years, and workload automation has been a perfect solution to manage the file transfer, the dependency management, and ultimately orchestrating, let's call it a reporting facility of sorts, to obtain insights from this big amount of data. And over the years, and of course with the rapid adoption of cloud, this has now evolved into data pipelines, right? Same thing, different wording, and largely built on cloud. But the use case has largely stayed the same, but now includes cloud storage, right? It includes cloud-based data and analytics services, or even dedicated machine learning or AI services that all the leading cloud providers provide. So customers are already putting workload automation to good use at the forefront, if you will, of getting all that data into these new AI models and doing all the orchestration around that, right? Now, there are also specific operational practices around machine learning, right? There's even a term for it. It's called ML Ops, right? This is another area where a workload automation platform such as Automic can definitely add value. So that was a real world and very current and existing, right? It's not a future outlook example of how customers can leverage enterprise workload automation today around their AI initiatives, providing visibility, providing control over these data pipelines as part of that overall AI strategy. Now the other way around, right? We're also looking at how can we leverage generative AI to make automation better, right? Can we make it easier? Can we make it faster? So this is actually an area where we at Broadcom, right, are doing quite some research on, right? And there's 2 areas we're looking at. So one is, can we leverage things like GenAI powered capabilities, for example, a conversational interface, right? Think chatbot, right? To get better answers to questions that users may have, right? Think of it as augmenting the online help, right? You can push F1, you can get help. But it's basically a simple keyword search. can we add an additional layer of knowledge management, right? Bringing in other sources of information that may help the user to get to what they are trying to accomplish, right? And then if you can use natural language via chatbot, our hopes are very high that the user will get much better in context information to try and answer any of the questions they may have. So that's an area that's actually very near future. We will make this live in the Automic product really soon. But if we take that one step further, right? What if I could use that same conversational interface? Again, think chatbot, but then have a conversation to share my intent, right? I want this report on my desk, Monday morning, right? Can we leverage AI to actually suggest or ultimately fully implement, that ask, right, into a fully automated procedure, right? So there's a lot of potential in Gen AI, and we are really looking forward to leverage this to help what we call democratizing automation, right? Make it available not only to automation experts, right, but also say business users or the so-called citizen developer, and really reduce the time to get value out of automation. So I hope with that long answer, I gave you a bit of, real world use as well.
I have a question for you, though, Kaj.
Sure.
So using in the future, are developers going to be able to just tell it what it wants him to create in terms of jobs, and it be able to create it for them? I mean, will it be able to utilize it?
Lies well within the possibilities, yes.
That's fantastic. That'd be exciting.
I
mean, the idea I've been talking about all along is reducing, we're going to talk a little bit of jobs as code and so forth.
Yeah.
What's the next evolution of jobs as code is, voice activated creation of jobs, right? Or, typing or whatever it be, like using AI to do that stuff for them. I mean, the idea is reduce the amount of time it takes to do some of those things that get done a lot. That would be amazing. So fantastic.
Okay, so enough with what to watch out for. And we see all of your questions coming into the chat and into the Q&A. Thank you for submitting them. We are getting to them. And in this round, I want to talk really quickly about some of the benefits of SaaS, and in particular, Automic SaaS. And Bob, I bet you're eager to put Kaj on the spot. So what do you think that people need to know?
I'm going to go through this, and I think due to time, I do want to answer some of their questions too. So I'll go through this, and then if you want to fire a couple of questions to both Kaj and I, will answer them, and then we'll keep going back into this. But I do think it's important for everybody on here and watching the recorded version to really understand. We talked about why, the dangers, and now we're going to talk a little bit about the benefits, because I think that's important. I guarantee a lot of folks that are on here and watching know that there's benefits, know some of the benefits, but we just want to talk a little more detail about them. So, Kaj, are there any features in Automic SaaS that aren't available, or are there any features that aren't available in Automic SaaS that are available in the self-hosted version? And I bring this up because sometimes that's not the case, right? I mean, so is Automic SaaS an exact replication of integrations and functionality and feature and everything like that in Automic SaaS that's the same as the on-prem self-hosted version?
Yes, it's exactly the same, right? The functionality is really identical between the on-prem and Automic SaaS. SaaS is fully mature, and it's really identical to the containerized version that is also available for on-premise deployment, but this time it's hosted and operated by Broadcom. Now, due to the nature of SaaS, there could be some differences. There's actually a question from the audience in chat, which is around, hey, I'm used to using transport case, and I know there's specific utilities that I have to use. And do these utilities still work in SaaS context? Now, Interestingly, I just said, functionality is identical feature by feature. However, there are differences, and this is due to the nature of SaaS, right? The utilities that were mentioned in this chat question require direct access to the backend database. You do not have direct access to the backend database with SaaS, right? So how do we counter that? Well, we do this by bringing the transport case functionality into the Automic web interface and also expose that functionality through the REST API. And this way, you don't have to rely on this utility anymore. You can still do that when transitioning from on-prem to SaaS, right? You use the utility as you have done for many years by doing the export, right? But then through self-service, you can upload it directly to the SaaS instance using the AWI. So really, even for areas where there is no real functional gap, but rather a some restriction or limitation because of the nature of SaaS, we are closing those gaps by providing alternative methodologies. Make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I think a couple more questions, if it's okay. Do you have any concerns? Somebody mentioned a concern about hitting 5 million jobs per month through 58 different connections. I'm assuming if the on-prem version can handle it, so too can the SaaS version, right? Obviously, they got to test it and validate it and so forth, right?
Definitely. I think one of the great benefits of leveraging the cloud, so ultimately Automic SaaS runs on the cloud, right, is that we can leverage the flexibility that cloud provides. Concepts like auto scaling, right? Concepts like baked in resiliency, high availability, right? It's all there, right? And it's a combination of technology, Kubernetes in the background, but also the services that the cloud provider offers, right? Resiliency across geographically separated data centers, for example. It all works seamless, right? And the great thing is that the system monitors itself, right? It can actually flex, it can scale up, right? As peak workload performance is required, the system scales up and scales down again, fully dynamic, fully automated. So it's really a great benefit of having that on SaaS.
Fantastic. Great answer. All right, back to some of the benefits that we were talking about. So reducing overall cost by optimizing cloud footprint. I don't want to be too aggressive, but what do you say to people who are worried about the cost of lifting and shifting applications to the cloud? Is there...
It's a very valid concern, right? And definitely it can introduce cost inefficiencies, but be aware, with Automic SaaS, we're not forcing you to migrate all your applications to the cloud all of a sudden, right? Remember, even with on-prem, and the same is true for Automic SaaS, we can orchestrate across cloud and on-premises services and business applications, right? So we help, by allowing this granular control and visibility that we've mentioned, but this works with your, what I tend to call multi-generational IT landscape, right? Whether you have mainframe, or whether you have modern cloud-native microservices and everything in between, with Automic, we have you covered, right? And even other vendors, right? Other enterprise vendors. Let's look at ERP as an example, right? Whether it's from Oracle or SAP, they're also nudging their customers to move to cloud, right? They have these big on-premise real estate, and they're moving customers to the cloud. And the great thing is that we continue to support these applications, right? Whether they continue to run on-prem or move to the cloud. So there's really no reason to be afraid, right? You can continue your cloud journey at your own pace, really.
Fantastic. Last portion related to the benefits, and obviously there are many, many more other than this, but is really around the jobs as code, full SDLC integration, and I wanted to touch base on that. I know I kind of hinted at it, but you heard me mention earlier in the battle when I talked about getting developers more time and effort to be able to enhance applications, enhance apps that we all buy and consume stuff through, and websites and so forth. And I talked about that. And the idea around jobs as code is to actually give those development communities a vehicle in which to be able to do things quicker than they would before. And one of the ways we talk about jobs as code is taking, you want to create jobs in the actual application, for example, Automic and Automic SaaS. How about we do it in a way that they speak that language better? Meaning they can actually create the jobs using the same kind of formats that they're accustomed to. And then also the SDLC integration, meaning I want to pump out releases. If I go create updates and enhancements to my actual application, I also want to automate that. And I don't want to have to wait for the actual change in the automation side before I move my code in. And so we want to be able to make both of them as quick and fast as possible. And so having a real firm, fully functioning SDLC process that's automated in every element is very important. Would you agree?
Definitely, yes. And we have these conversations a lot as well, right? As you streamline your organization and are doing, agile practices with a proper SDLC and a CI/CD tool chain, right? People want to use the same tools they use for their Java or Python code, right? They want to use the same tool chain to, for example, put their automation content in version control, right? And this is also why Automic integrates with any Git-based repository to enable you to use that same staging methodology, if you will, and persist the automation objects from Automic in the same way you persist your Java or just an example Python code. And on top of that, I think very important, it's also about being able to programmatically control the system, right? And some of this depends on the preference of the persona working with the tool, right? A system administrator, a traditional system administrator may prefer a UI, right? Where the more modern, developer-focused persona prefers to use their favorite IDE, right? And to be able to control the system, for example, using the Automic REST API, definitely speaks to both of those personas.
Ding, ding,
Fantastic.
ding. That was so great. Yes. Wow. What a fight, you guys. A big round of applause for our automation warriors. Bob and Kai, thank you for stepping in the ring and delivering powerful punches of knowledge. You both went toe to toe. And I think the real winners today are those of us who got to witness your showdown. So thank you to our spectators for joining us and cheering from the sidelines. We'll get to you if we didn't during the webinar. We'll reach out. We know you could have been anywhere. We're grateful you were here. And you can look out for your event package as well. It will come to your email. You'll find the recording, the transcript, the Automic SaaS solution brief, and a brand new Automic SaaS guide, all the tools you need to keep fighting the good fight. And remember, we're in your corner. If you have any questions specific to your organization, reach out. We're here to help you strategize and execute your winning game plan. Trey, maybe you can put up our phone number. And we don't want you to miss out on that free feasibility discussion that we're offering. So you can follow the link in the chat or email services@robertmarktech.com, because when it comes to making the right moves, a little expert advice can go a long way. So thank you so much for being here. And also, we'd like to invite you to the 3rd annual Broadcom Automation Virtual Summit. That's coming up soon, and you'll hear customers, partners, product experts of Broadcom and strategists delve into the powers of workload automation. And Bob has also been invited to share RMT's insights on the strategic partner panel, the secret to successful SaaS. So thanks again, everyone. Keep punching above your weight in the world of automation. Stay strong, stay smart, and we will see you in the next round.
Thanks, Kai.
Thanks. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.